Senator Anderegg, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, and this is a new section, a new group that we're calling "Getting to Know You." So this is just for Utahns, everyday Utahns, to get to know their legislators a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your district and where you're located.
Yeah, so I'm Senate District 13, which is northwest Utah County and southwest Salt Lake County. Most of my district is in Utah County, but I do take in about a third of Harriman and a small section of Bluffdale. So it's Eagle Mountain, Cedar Fort, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh, small section of American Fork, and Highland. And then all the way down to Santaquin, the north end of Santaquin. So I'm the west side of Utah Lake and arguably the fastest growing district in the United States.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. So have you lived there your whole life, or where do you originate from?
So I am a native Utahn, but I am not originally from Lehigh. I was born in Salt Lake City and raised in Sandy, right up at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. So I spent most of my youth up those canyons, Bells Canyon, Little Cottonwood, Big Cottonwood, skiing, snowboarding, rock climbing, a lot of rock climbing. And that's home for me. But we moved to Lehigh back in 2000. So we've been here 20 years now. And it's just a great place to raise a family.
That's awesome. So why did you decide to run for election?
I think I must have been drunk at first. No, truth is I kind of got involved with politics back in 2000 when a buddy of mine invited me to, run, to come to the local caucus meeting. So that kind of set me up on being a delegate, for the next 10 years. And I was a precinct chair, vice chair, county delegate, state delegate. Anyhow, long story short, in 2010 with redistricting, the 2012 election cycle had new maps. Everything was drawn. And so at that time, I had gotten so involved that I had worked on Senator Mike Lee's campaign, and then afterwards was hired by Senator Lee as his Northern Utah director. So I was here in the state office. And in 2012, this House district that I live in, House District 6, became available. It was an uncontested seat, so there was no incumbent. Those don't come around very often. And after consulting with Senator Lee, I felt like there was probably a good opportunity for me to run and be successful. So that's what I did. I had 5 Republicans run against me, and I was elected in 2012 and started serving in the House in 2013. So I never thought, hey, I'm going to go and be a politician. That was never in my cards. I just kind of fell into getting involved. And then once I was involved, I realized that there was a lot that I could do. And then with redistricting, the opportunity came and I decided to jump on it. So I served for 4 years in the House, and now I've just completed, or this December, this is the end of my 4th year in the Senate. So 8 years total in the legislature, and I've just won re-election for another 4 years to the Senate. So that's how I got involved.
Now that you've finished your first full term as a senator, which do you prefer?
Senate, hands down. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please do.
Quite literally, the House, you've got 75 members, which means you got to get 38 members to kind of control the direction of where the House goes, which ultimately can control the direction of the entire legislature, which can, control what policy is done for the state. Getting 38 people to agree, though, is not easy. And when you're in the Senate, especially if you're, like I am, a member of the majority caucus, there's 23 majority members out of 29 positions. So there's only 6 Democrats. So even though you need 38 votes in the House, 15 votes in the Senate, and 1 vote from the governor to pass anything, it only takes 11 votes in a closed caucus in the Senate to kill anything. And that's quite a bit more power than I had in the House as far as being able to control the direction of where we head as a state.
So what I hear you saying is that the Senate is just simply easier to manage than the House might be.
It's easier to manage, but it's also little bit more deliberative. I'm less susceptible to loud minority voices within the district, and so it's easier to weigh positions and not feel so threatened that if I vote the wrong way, someone's going to vote me out because they disagreed with me on that one issue. House members are much more subjected to that, and senators are much less subjected to that. So,
Yeah, for sure. So our legislature is part-time and most people have a job outside of the legislature. What are you doing right now?
well, all legal stuff, I swear. No, what I'm doing is I am the vice president of community development at Zions Bank. And ultimately, what that entails is I network. I use my connections that I forged either in the private sector or through politics to open doors on projects. So ultimately, what I do is, the executive vice president over Treasury wants to know who I know at, ABC Corporation. Oh, well, I know so and so, so and so, so and so. Let's set up a lunch, and I put this person together with this person, and if a deal is made, the deal is made, and if not, I got them in the same room together. So that's what I get paid for.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let me see. What has been your favorite part of your service so far?
I would say that the service itself is a very rewarding experience and also a very challenging experience. I will say this, it doesn't happen very often, once or twice every session, where so many of the bills you discuss are kind of keeping the lights on and making sure someone gets paid and, just the logistics of keeping a government running. Every once in a while, you'll even see it if you pay close attention, where normally when you're on the Senate floor and people are discussing, you're having the debate, but while you're having the debate, people are talking to each other and there's just kind of this low rumble that happens on the floor. But every once in a while, the atmosphere changes and everybody shuts up and everyone really listens, and you really engage in a very thorough discussion about principles. And at those times, there's just a really neat feeling that comes into that chamber. And I think we get the policy right. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but once or twice every session, you know that the action you take is really benefiting the citizens of the state. And that's just a really neat experience and really neat feeling.
That's wonderful. So speaking of things quieting down the chambers, we're all experiencing this lovely coronavirus pandemic, which we're doing in various different ways, and why we're recording completely apart right now. So tell me a little bit about what you think or what you see the legislature doing for Utahns moving forward.
With the COVID, well, I think that we are committed, as is the governor and the governor-elect, to make sure that we strike the appropriate balance of self-discipline as well as government intervention for safety protocols, wearing your masks, while at the same time striking that balance to what's happening in the economy. There can be and will be effective ways to maintain safeties to help halt the spread of the virus, while at the same time not causing segments within our economy going into bankruptcy and foreclosures and whatnot. And not only do we have the fear of the spread, and not only do we have the deaths that are occurring, and we're at a precarious spot where we may all of a sudden get to a point where we have more people seeking hospitalization than can obtain services. We're not there yet, but we're close. If we get to that point, the death rate's going to super spike. Right now, the death rate is actually on par with deaths due to heart disease, believe it or not. If we somehow don't have enough services for those who are in critical conditions, the ICUs, the death rate will spike. And that's what we're desperately trying to avoid. So the difficult thing is to balance that with the needs of the economy as well as the needs of society. Our domestic violence rates have quadrupled. Our suicide rates have 8 times increased. So not only is the pandemic affecting those who actually get sick and have critical needs associated with it, but those that are under a new situation because of the restrictions under the pandemic, we've got to take those into account as well. We met not last week, but the week before with the governor and with the governor-elect, and we are absolutely committed that moving forward, we will have and continue to implement the policies in place that can help us transition through this period of time until a vaccine is readily available. I was surprised to hear yesterday that the vaccines are already becoming available next week here in the state of Utah for the first round, which is going to be primarily medical care professionals, as well as those of critical, the most vulnerable populations. And then the next phase will be sometimes towards the end of January. And then the next phase will be sometimes towards the beginning of March. And I was actually surprised to learn that if we can get to a 70% immunity factor, we can create a herd, what's called herd immunity. And if that happens, that could happen, we'll see, but it could happen as early as mid-May, in which case that would make this novel virus of very little effect going forward. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we have to figure out how to navigate between here and there. And one of the most immediate factors is that the CARES Act money runs out, has to be spent by the end of December. And the moratorium on evictions for people that are renting ends on the 30th of December. And until the Biden administration, I'm a Republican, but I'm going to say Biden's the president. Okay, so let's move on. But, January 20th is the earliest he can engage to actually affect change on a moratorium or anything like that. So we've got about a month window where evictions could be a serious problem. So that's, I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Commission, and that is something that's the most prevalent in my mind of what I'm trying to do to help state-wise intervene to fill that gap until we can see if there's any additional federal assistance. So
I kind of question your party alliance here just a smidge. You seem very invested in making sure that there's a social safety net that's applicable to everybody, especially right now.
Yeah, I think what I'm finding, well, let me just say my true ideology underpinnings are more libertarian than they are, dyed-in-the-wool Republican. I am a Republican and not a libertarian because I can't get to the extremes of the Libertarian Party. Like I'm not for recreational drug use. I'm not for legalized prostitution. But by and large, 80% of what a libertarian feels is kind of where I sit. And so that tends to be fiscally conservative, but rather socially progressive to a large extent with, certain limitations. But what that ultimately means to me is I'm very pragmatic, and pragmatically, my district is growing at just under a 6% growth rate last year. So I can't afford, from a fiscal conservative standpoint, to wait 8 to 10 years before we get, the honey bucket of money that gets passed around the state for transportation. I can't wait a decade. And the last thing I want is to have my ideology stand in the way of practical application. I don't want, 10 years from now, if I'm still in the legislature, constituent come to me and say, what in the hell have you been doing for the last 10, 15 years? Up there, hey, look at the bill I ran, vote for me again, great, yay. But then we're at gridlock here in Lehigh. It's like, no, I've got to have some real effectual change.
For sure. Your constituents need to actually be able to see you pass those bills and not be stuck on one giant sea of cars down south, for sure. Okay, so now we're going to go into the lightning round. So what is your most unusual talent?
I'll say two things. First off, an unusual talent that is one that I haven't really explored since I was in junior high is I am a prodigious burper. I can belch with the best of them, and I always have been able to. So I don't know if that's a talent or a curse, but that being said, one of my talents that is not utilized very much anymore is I was in a alternative rock band for about 13 years, from when I was 14 all the way up until just after I got married. And heavy metal. I played the guitar, lead guitar, and vocals. We recorded a couple times, and I am no longer in a band, but I do play the guitar fairly well. My brother, who was in the band, and his and our drummer Kevin, they've both gone on and actually opened for Bon Jovi, 8 years ago down in Orlando. So they're still playing hard. I'm no longer doing the whole band thing, but I did that for, like I said, about 12, 13 years. So
I'm gonna need those recordings. That's absolutely necessary. I mean, if we're gonna out Spencer Cox every couple of months on Twitter with his weird dad band thing that he does, and he's our next governor, I feel like we need to see some video.
I honestly, I had one conversation with him about possibly putting a little gig together, and then I never pursued it after that.
So the next one, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Well, I don't know what your definition of sandwich is. I mean, it kind of folds between buns, and so you kind of eat it like that. I've never considered it a sandwich. I've always considered it a hot dog, and a hot dog is a hot dog. So
could you go 30 days without your phone?
Could I? Sure, if I had to. Would I want to? No.
Okay. What generation are you?
Well, lately it feels like I'm part of Generation F, but I was born in 75. So I guess I'm, what is that? Is that
You're an Xer, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm Gen X.
Yeah.
But it's been feeling like Generation F, sorry.
Okay, what's your favorite jelly bean?
You know what? I don't really eat jelly beans. I do like lime. I like the flavor lime. I don't eat much candy.
Okay.
I used to eat a lot of candy. But really if I'm going to say what my favorite sweet is, it's homemade chocolate chip cookies. Like, I can sit down and pound 2 or 3 dozen in a single sitting, which is why I've put on weight.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, you're not doing anything.
Actually, I've lost 30 pounds in the last 90 days. So yeah.
That's amazing. Props to you for that. Okay, so dogs or cats?
We have both, but dogs are what I prefer, but my little girls like the cats, so we have both.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Not a politician. I was probably like a lawyer. I don't know. An astronaut, but I get motion sick really easy. So astronaut kind of, and anything dealing with like the Air Force and flying probably is not for me.
Yeah. Pretty quick.
So I was thinking a lawyer or business. That's kind of where I thought I'd always be. And that's kind of where I ended up, but then somehow got involved in politics. So
that's the way it goes. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, flying. Dude, you got to fly. Like, if I could just like take off and jump, yeah, that'd be sweet. Plus it would help with rock climbing. So,
I mean, you wouldn't really be climbing all that much anymore, would you? You just kind
of be the free soloist of all, and then not worry about it, right?
Yeah, you just meet people at the top. See you guys. Yeah. What is the worst movie you've ever seen?
Well, the worst, it could be defined, and I thought one of the most pointless and just awful movies was Natural Born Killers. I was like, what? Like, why are we even bothering? But like, just as far as like stupidity goes, oh man, it's hard to, because like Dumb and Dumber is a classic, and I know it's stupid, but that's a classic show. And I'm just trying to think, like, I don't know what else there might be. I'm sure I've seen some stupid shows. I know I've walked out of shows. Oh, I got it. All of the Twilights. Oh my gosh. I'll give you just a quick story. We're in movie number 2, and I'm sitting there, and I'm 20 minutes into this just going, what am I doing here? And it gets to that really intense scene at the end where she's like choosing between werewolf and vampire. And some dude who's just like me in the back yells, just bite her already. And I just was like, okay. And I knew I was never going to see another one of those shows again. I hate those shows.
Okay, what's your favorite movie?
I'm a huge Matrix fan. I like the Inception. I love war movies, and especially that have a historical stint. So Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List is fantastic. I like movies that challenge me mentally. So like Tenet, you don't realize that the whole show is actually in reverse until you're at the end. Tenet's a great show. So I like those shows that challenge you. I liked Interstellar, even though I know it didn't get a ton of great reviews. I like the whole theory of relativity aspect. So.
And what is the strangest text or email you've ever gotten from a constituent?
Holy cow. So my first session in the Senate, so 4 years ago, apparently there was this article in the Washington Post or something that talked about how these Chinese, or I should say, politicians in Hong Kong were going back and forth. One was an incumbent, the other was the challenger. And apparently the incumbent passed a ordinance or some sort of law that said you could not use the letter N in any signage. It was like a weird thing. Anyhow, this constituent read this. And the reason it was the letter N, or whatever their equivalent is because his challenger had a lot of N's in his name. So he was trying to affect his challenger's ability to post campaign signs. So I had this constituent who emails me and just pleading that we not outlaw the letter N. And I'm like, are you serious? And this dude was dead serious. And I don't know if he was like mentally all there or not. So I instructed my constituent I dictated to him, and I wrote out a whole response. There's no intention of outlawing the letter N. It's a vital part of our alphabet and the way we would communicate. And there's no intention on the state level to outlaw the letter N. But then what I did is I had my intern go in and block out all the letter N's in my paragraphs and send it off to him. And ultimately, his one-word response, clever.
Oh, that's a fantastic story. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And we will definitely be seeing a lot more of you during session.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate working with you.